you like this topic, that LeBron James was found to be in breach of the NBA's health and safety protocols for a promotional event he attended prior to the Lakers game versus the Warriors earlier this week. Woj also reported that LeBron will not be suspended as the nature of the event didn't rise to a threat level of virus spread. So Perk, I saw you tweeting about this a little bit. It took all they had to get past the Warriors on Wednesday night, a team that is now not even a playoff team. With all of that happening, how do you think that the Lakers will do against the Suns in this series?
I got the Lakers in 6, and here's why. When you watch them play, even when they don't have it going offensively, their defense is so on point. It's just a beautiful thing to see, right? The way that they play boxes and elbows, they get deflections, able to get out and transition and run. But Anthony Davis, right? The way he defends, Anthony Davis really could possibly win if he was healthy and would play a full season. He could win Defensive Player of the Year every single year. It's not one guy that does what he does on the defensive end on a night-to-night basis. The way that he's able to switch 1 through 5, the way that he's able to protect the basket. And we all know what LeBron James brings to the table. But I'm looking at Caruso, a guy like Wesley Matthews, Caldwell Pope. Those guys are bought in. And if they just get just a little bit out of Andre Drummond. I mean, hell, Monica, Christine, he went on the tour after he was released from Cleveland. Like, just give something. Give something.
Yeah.
Give something.
Yeah.
Monica, what do you think?
Perk, Drummond is baffling because you look at it and he'll have like 14 rebounds, but you'll be like, wait, what? Like, this didn't seem to impact the game at all. I think this one for me, I'm really curious about CP3 versus his boy LeBron. I think CP3 is going to be the key to the matchup from the Suns' perspective, but I think there are willing defenders on this Lakers roster that are going to put their best foot forward in terms of defending CP3. I'm excited to see Dennis Schroeder go up against him. CP3 helped Dennis Schroeder take the next step in his game when they were back in OKC. We know that CP3 also is all about the gamesmanship, a little chitter-chatter, getting in the refs' ears. Like, I'm curious to see how all of that comes together. And then I think the first 2 games, I think the Suns' best bet is probably to grab one early in this series because I did see some rust about this Lakers squad just getting back to continuity, even though they got the win over the Warriors.
Also so incredibly interesting that this is the first time that LeBron and CP3 have gone up against each other in the postseason. Perk, what were you going to say?
And one thing to add, because Monica brought up a good point about Dennis Schroeder, right? Think about this. Dennis Schroeder turned down a 4-year, $80-some million extension, okay? Because he said he wanted 100+. And I never knock a player for trying to get his letters because that comes first, okay? But look, you can't make the All-Star game. That is over. You can't make an All-NBA team. So the only way to prove to the world in this organization that you worth $100 million is that you got to show up when it matters the most. Yeah. And guess what? That time is now. And now you have CP3. So I'm looking at Monica. That's a great point. He has to show up. He has to show up in these playoffs if he want that type of bread.
You got to eat. You got to eat that lettuce. Got to get that bread. But, I mean, you also got to play if you're getting the lettuce and the bread, right? We're in Austin, Monica in D.C. holding it down. What's good, folks?
Hey, I'm good. Look, I'm on here with Christine. I'm on here with Monica. Monica, you saw them Grizzlies getting it out the mud yesterday. And you know what? Hey, look, me looking at that little, the Twitter, the little sheet of paper with everybody picks and seeing you were the only one that picked the Grizzlies, I was like, yeah, that's what I like to see. When you stand on that island by yourself, because you know the game and you know what's about to happen, and then you could yell and boast and brag after you know you was right when John Morant showed up in good fashion like he did.
You know what, Perk? I honestly was surprised that I was by myself. I was like, Sarah Spain was the first person that told me that I was the only one. And I was like, really? I mean, but I think the personality of that Grizzly squad, I know we're going to get into this, Christine, so I don't want to spill it all too soon. But it went down the way I thought it would. I'm not going to lie, though. I didn't have Xavier Tillman making no kind of big-time threes the way he did.
Okay, well, let's get into it. We start with our Spot Up 3 segment. And the first topic is all about Monty. All right, topic number 1 is thank you, Monica. After After their win last night over Golden State to grab the final spot in the playoffs, the Grizzlies tweeted out a list of ESPN analysts who picked the Grizzlies and the Warriors. And the only person to pick the Grizzlies, as we already said, that was Monica McNutt. The Grizzlies tweeted LOL, and then they tweeted, shout out Monica. Ja Morant then, who by the way has 1 million followers on Twitter, then said, hey, Monica McNutt, then the little handshake emoji. That's what we love to see. So I know, Monty, you kind of teased this a little bit, but what did you see in that Memphis team, and how much are you enjoying your newfound clout?
It feels like pressure, I will say, of the clout. First, I was like, does this put me in the class of Jennifer with Portland? Remember, we're trying Jennifer? That was my first thought. And now I'm like, I don't know that I am confident in any of the rest of my picks in the playoffs as I was in this particular matchup. And so what I saw, to answer your question, Christine, to me, and Gino Auriemma said it back in the day when I was playing ball at Georgetown and we used to battle UConn. One particular season, we saw them 4 times, and the closest we got was in the NCAA tournament. We lost by 6. But he said the more you play a team, the more you're familiar with them. So between the fact that the Grizzlies just lost to the Warriors at the end of the regular season just last week, Dillon Brooks fouled out, which I think was huge. I think the fourth quarter would have gone differently if he had stayed on the floor. And this is a team that's very young, very hungry, has the weapons. I thought Valanciunas would be the key, but even when he went to the bench, I felt like the Grizzlies could match up with the Warriors small ball. Dillon Brooks wanted all the smoke in terms of guarding Steph Curry. And even in the first quarter, while Steph still accumulated his numbers, he had to work for those numbers. In the first quarter, he was falling on the ground. He was flipping the ball around. That was all because of this Grizzlies defense. So I just saw the personality of a squad that literally got an immediate opportunity to run it back.
So Ja Morant not only will be getting a new puppy from Perk, but he also will be one of several players, new stars making their playoff debuts this season, along with Devin Booker, Julius Randle, and Trae Young, to name some others. Perk, I'll ask you this one. Which new guy are you most excited about watching?
Well, it's Ja. I mean, because, he flies under the radar because he's a guy that you'll look at his stats and say, oh, he averaged 17 points and 7 assists, but he's a winner, right? Like, he has so much growth. He is a grown man. Like those old people used to say, he has an old soul. And the way that he plays the game, he plays to win. So he don't mind feeding off of others. If he have to go out and have a good night, a big night scoring, he'll do just that. But if he have to go out and have 6 points with 13 or 14 assists, he does that. He do whatever it takes to win. I love his passion. I love the way that he compete on the defensive side of things. And the thing I love most about Ja is that he's not afraid of embarrassment, right? We talk about Dillon Brooks and the way that he guarded. But when you look at Ja Morant and the way that he guards, also the way that he's not afraid to go and contest people at the rim, that shows me something. I don't care about getting put on highlights. I just care about winning. I'm looking forward to watching Ja Morant and go against this Utah Jazz team. And that's why when I put up my picks for the Western Conference, I have to be determined.
Monty, what about you? Perk's excited about the young guy. What about you?
First of all, I didn't know to be determined was a thing that we could do, Perk. So I'm going to take that out of your book. I'm using that from now on. Second, I agree with Perk. I'm excited about this Grizzly squad. But I got to say, as someone who really kind of loves a great defender, I'm so excited to see Dillon Brooks guard Donovan Mitchell. I think that could be something that is a sneaky big deal in this series, especially as Dillon continues to assert himself and establish his legacy in this league. I think the most impressive part about yesterday to me was that it was almost counterintuitive to what the Grizzlies do. You heard JVG on the broadcast talking about their points in the paint, their transition. They're one of the best transition teams in the league. And they slowed that thing down yesterday. And so Ja's basketball IQ, I think we love when he goes and dunks on somebody's head at the rim, right? But his basketball IQ, I think, is something that's going to make this interesting. And while I do think the Jazz probably get out of this, I am curious to see what the speed of the Grizzlies looks like compared to this versus this Jazz team. Because if you put Valanciunas in the dunker spot, to me, that occupies Rudy Gobert. So we got to see how this is going to go.
We certainly will see. And we go